Hello, and welcome back to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast, where we explore the ongoing journey of recovery and the spiritual growth that comes with it. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hey everyone, it's Paul from Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast with a quick note before we get started with this episode. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for an entire year now. It's been such an amazing experience getting to know everybody. We already have the majority of 2026 booked up and we have a lot of great guests scheduled. We don't make any money off YouTube or any of the other platforms. This podcast is completely self-supporting and we've spent a lot of money, time, and energy into it simply just because we love doing it. We're not trying to make a profit, but we are trying to cover our upcoming expenses if that's at all possible. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can make a contribution at our Venmo, which is Recovery Recordings 615. We'd like to keep this commercial free. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast. I'm your host Paul. Today is February 21st, 2026. This is episode 98. If you want to reach us, you can reach us at our email address, which is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. You can also find us. We have a private Facebook page, which is Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast. We usually put upcoming events on there, stuff, we post a lot of the episodes. Speaking of upcoming events, we have this upcoming Sunday, a week from today, February 8th, we are going to be having Jane W. from Nashville, Tennessee with her good friend Valerie S. from Eugene, Oregon. We're going to be doing an episode called Emotional Sobriety, Al-Anon for the Alcoholic. Super interested about that topic. Love that. Then the following week, which is February 15th, we have John E. and his wife Renee E. from Lebanon, Tennessee. Two dear friends of mine. Super excited about that. We're calling that Boy Meets Girl on Campus. So that's going to be an interesting episode. I've been talking to tonight's guest for the last month or so, just kind of running ideas on what he wanted to talk about, and I'm super excited. We have this guest on the show. We had an episode called Our Real Purpose on episode 72, and that was a few months back. It's Don L. from Bellingham, Washington. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, my friend. Nice to see you.
How's the weather where you're? Are you in Washington right now? You at home?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm in beautiful Bellingham. It is, winter, and we are getting what we deserve in the winter.
Yeah.
There's a reason we're the evergreen state, and everything is so. People come here in the summer and they go, "It's so green, and the trees are so big," and go, "You got to come back in February and see how we earn this."
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So today was a classic example of, get out early, take the dog out for a run, get shellacked by the rain, and just,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you. I really enjoyed the last episode we did. I've always loved your talks, to be honest with you. I always get something. Every time I can listen to one of your talks over and over again, and every time I listen to one, I get something new out of it, and I really appreciate that. Yeah. Today is today's episode is called Creating Non-Negotiable Spiritual Practices. I love that. That's been a big topic for me, actually, since I've been sober a little over 9 years. And luckily, I had the direction I had in the beginning was that, what kind of what stuff are you doing on a daily basis, right? And so this is a topic that I really love talking about, actually. Sometimes over the years, I'm not going to say I don't slack on some of it from time to time, but for the most part, I'm pretty good at having certain daily disciplines. It's funny, I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine like a week ago where I'll go through like a period where it's like maybe 2 or 3 weeks where I can't get into some literature, right? And it bothers me sometimes, but sometimes every time I pick up a book or whatever, I'm just like, screw it, And I don't like how it makes me feel. I'll still go through the process and do it, but I don't necessarily like it. And I hate it when I get in those states, right?
So there's a There's the genesis of our spiritual way of living for most of us is the day we walked into recovery. Um, I don't know what your experience is. I was around organized religion, uh, raised in interestingly enough, a Jewish Christian household, which means my grandmother was Jewish. So that part was being observed. And then, Christmas, and doing all that. So as a kid, you don't really think much about that. And I remember liking the idea of God, um, much in the way I like the idea of Santa Claus. I was very, very sad when I found out Santa Claus wasn't real. I mean, it broke my heart legitimately. I remember the trauma associated with that. Like, you've been lying to me. That can't, he's not real. It was awful. And by the time I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I think through my own actions, I got such a negative view of the world that I looked at God the same way. Nice idea, great stories, love the concept. It's a shame it's not real. I looked at God no different than I would have looked at Santa Claus. Like, it's nice if you believe, but we all know, come on, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that this doesn't exist. And the book's clear when it talks about being beat into a state of readiness to examine some spiritual ideas, that it's actually what propels us into Alcoholics Anonymous, the pain, the failure, that actually allows guys like me to go, well, maybe I missed something. And I think the thing that I'm very fortunate in that I was 12 stepped in AA on my second night of recovery. So imagine, you're coming up on 48 hours of sobriety. You're pretty sure you're not going to stay sober because that's your experience. Consequence hasn't stopped me. Failure hasn't stopped me. The love of my family hasn't stopped me. Court systems haven't stopped me. And so I know I'm going to drink again. I'm just trying to buy some time, get the heat off, and figure out my next move.
Yeah.
And I got 12 steps. So now I have an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous as a sponsor who believes in this thing and also believes in don't squander the willingness of the new man. He believed that the willingness we have when we've just left the battlefield, so to speak, is only going to diminish as time goes on. And if we examine that, I think I have a sobriety date of September 16th, 1991, so I'm at the 34-year mark. And I would like to think I'm fairly willing as an AA member. I'm active in a home group. I have commitments. I say yes when I'm asked to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's terrific. Here's the truth. The willingness that I possess today pales in comparison to the willingness I had when I was new, for one simple fact. Today, I know it works, right? And I've, for lack of a better definition, I've received the fruits of the labors of recovery.
Sure.
So when I'm new, it's very easy for me to dismiss the gifts in your life, the blessings in your life, because I just figure you're not like me. If you were like me, you wouldn't be able to stay sober. If you were like me, you would have drank again. If you were like me, you would have burned your life to the ground, because that's my experience. So this idea that what you have is available to me, I'm going to have a problem with that. So I think if you remove the incredibly important component of a sponsor in this equation, for me, in my experience, there's no way I would have stayed sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's no way, that I would have the relationship with a higher power that I choose to call God today.
Same.
And
yeah.
The reason is, if you're waiting for me to think it's a good idea, I hope you packed a lunch, because I'm not going to think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So when we tell our stories, it's important for me to remember to give credit where credit is due, that I didn't do any of this. I was just fortunate enough to get grabbed in the environment that is, a good Alcoholics Anonymous environment where people really are attuned to their primary purpose and are trying to work with new people and try to give them the program undiluted. It's interesting. Many of us go out and we get the honor of doing public information presentations. And one of the things you do when you get to go to a school or meet in front of probation officers or lawyers or police officers or doctors, and you're going there as a representative of AA. And it's very important that we remember our stories aren't important in that setting. What's important is that we try to convey what AA is and what AA isn't. And I think a good sponsor does that for you, particularly about what AA is. I think there's a hesitancy that I've witnessed in my years here. We're almost afraid to tell our new friends exactly what AA really is. We're going to let them get their feet underneath them a little bit, like maybe make a friend or two. Let's take them to a buffet, know.
So
And then
true.
we'll lay the God thing on them. And it feels, I think the problem with that is we're not dumb. We may be failures at the game of life, but we're not dumb when we get here. We may be drug addled and addicted to alcohol, but we're not dumb. So it feels like bait and switch. It feels a little bit insincere. Like, and I'm a firm believer that if the God talk drives you out, then King Alcohol will drive you back in. That's just been my experience. I think we become open-minded to the God idea when when we've exhausted the resources of our human power. And I think that is what happened to me. I didn't know that I wanted a life in AA, and I certainly was fairly certain I didn't want to have a relationship with this God that you were talking about at every meeting I went to. But I was out of ideas.
Yeah. Nice.
And I was sure of one thing, if nothing else, right? I don't want to go back to the life I just left. This may not be the answer, but I know that certainly is not. And it had never worked. It hadn't worked in a long time. And whatever shadowy memories I had to when it was a good time, boy, they were way in the rearview mirror. So it buys a new guy a little bit of time. When we say keep coming back, it gets me to come back the next night. Just a little bit of open-mindedness, born out of desperation, born out of the failure of my human resources. I just go, well, what do I know? I'll come back again. These people seem nice. They seem happy to see me. That's unusual because no one on the planet's happy to see me when I get sober, right? But people in AA are delighted that I'm there.
Yeah.
You show up on your 6th day of sobriety and they about throw you a party. Oh, you're back. That's great.
So true.
Yeah. Very encouraging. I mean, one of the things that we do for each other that I think is spiritual in nature is we encourage people that have no evidence that that's going to turn out okay.
Amen.
We try to produce the hope that they can't produce themselves.
So big. Absolutely.
It's an encouragement.
Yeah.
Just small little acknowledgments, where we just hand out approval for the seemingly slightest things. Oh man, you got here early. That's awesome. People that get to meetings early, they probably stay sober. Just those little things people said to me meant a lot to me when I'm new and I've burned my life to the ground. When we talk about, I hear this today. I heard it when I was new. People would talk about, they'd be sharing and they go, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the spiritual side of the program. And so we all get ready to hear about the spiritual side of the program, which is funny because talking about the spiritual side of the program is like talking about the wet part of water. And I think that's one of the things I'm grateful that my first sponsor didn't try to hide from me, didn't try to diminish for me. He was very upfront with that this was available to me right now.
Thank God.
And that without that, very little was going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I think we're so worried that, somebody will leave AA because they don't believe in God, but our own literature, when we read Re-Agnostic, says that about 50% of us that showed up here, first 100 men and women, about 50% of us didn't believe in God, or, we're atheist or agnostic. So at 50%, that's a pretty high percentage. So when you come in here and you go, well, I don't believe in God. Well, welcome to the team.
Yeah, welcome home. Yeah.
It's not unique. We'd be surprised if you came in and, we'd be worried like, well, whatever God you believe in, you might want to find another one because it hasn't been working too good. But when we talk about I think we want to find. I want to find God. That's my first itch that I can't scratch. I have to find this power. And the other thing is I have to understand it. Now, these are two things that are going to be real blocks to spiritual development. Because, as people say, if I could explain God, he wouldn't be big enough. But it's human nature, I think. You can tell me that something's going to take me from the scrap heap of life, set me on my feet, show me how to live, introduce me to a manner of living significantly better than I've ever known before. And that's all good. I still want to know how it works.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And nobody, if you want to go to a really frustrating meeting, go to a meeting where it's a topic meeting and the topic is the third step. You'll be so confused by the end of that meeting if you're new, because it doesn't sound like we're all talking about the same thing, but isn't that our universal experience, that it all happens for us very differently with different individuals? So this spiritual sandbox that we're asked to get into is very deep and it's very large, and there are no rules. And luckily, my sponsor started introducing me to some things that they sound like doctrine, or they sound like spiritual practice, and they are in essence, but what they are is they're tethers. All right. I'm going to start to develop spiritual work habits that are going to enable me to make contact with and then develop that contact, this new relationship that I have no experience in, because I don't know what your experience is, Paul, but I never sat in the bar, snorting lines off the bar and throwing back shots of whiskey, and then turned to the guy next to me and said, "So, what's your conception of higher power?"
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that stuff where I come from.
No.
So, and suddenly, you're in an environment where everybody seems to be talking about it.
Wow.
So it can be very off-putting, and it can be scary.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people I've worked with over the years, they're haunted by the memory of what they've, recently done and what they've done over the years. So they're existing in an emotional atmosphere of guilt, shame, and remorse. And if you have the wrong idea about this God that they talk about in AA, right?
Yeah.
God as you understand him, you might come to the conclusion that it's not available to you based on what you've done.
Amen.
Why would this power have anything to do with you?
Yeah.
So these are some of the hurdles I wanted to put forth that I didn't overcome, because I want to say this. It's an interesting thought for me, that I don't believe God needs my permission to love me. I don't think he needs my permission to save me. And I think that if I get close to him, right, he's going to disclose himself to me. And I don't know any way for an alcoholic to get closer to God than just go to AA meetings with other people that have already found him. I think that environment by itself can be very conducive to spiritual growth. Example, how many times guys like you or me got up in the morning, said some prayers, rudimentary prayers, little quick meditation, right? Shot out the door like out of a cannon, run through our lives basically on self-will and collision with somebody or something, maybe getting good results, but there's stuff to do. Life is busy. But the question is, how often were we thinking about God during this process? I have been guilty innumerable times of spending the day with self after starting with prayer and meditation, spent the day with self, but I'm at a meeting that night. And almost immediately I'm hearing about God, and this is what my brain does. Oh yeah, God. Oh yeah. I think you know, one of the fringe benefits of attending meetings
Mm,
or doing anything that's recovery based. That could be listening to a speaker take, that could be reading any of our approved literature. Any of these actions, uh, they help remind us of what we're supposed to be doing.
sure.
We seem to have very short memories. And of course, I've been here a long time, and I seem to, at any given time, I have to ask myself, okay, I've been sober a while. What the heck am I supposed to be doing right now? Like, what does the program suggest? I have to stop and pull away from my life and create that space and that silence,
Mm,
this contemplative state where I can ask myself that. So I don't want to ever diminish, you know, people. It's become, I don't know, uh, the last 10 years or so, in, in the last, started really with Joe and Charlie. And in the last 10 years, there's really a big book consciousness, which I love. And a lot of big book workshops and big book retreats. And that's all great. And then, but unfortunately, alcoholics, when we find something that works for us and we like it, we can't just leave that alone and say, boy, this is really working for me. We have to put down what other people are doing.
mm,
I hate it, this competitive
nice.
nature. Like, Katie P from Texas says something that is simple yet brilliant. This is what she says: there should be no fighting in the lifeboat.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
That's great.
So I hear people say meetings aren't recovery. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I'll tell you what, a good meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous has incredible discussion of what recovery is and should be. And it has helped me over the years to remember what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm,
There's nothing I like better than being in a meeting and I'm just, I'm in the meeting. It looks like I'm paying attention. Trust me, I'm thinking about me. And without my permission, something that someone like yourself says about spiritual discipline or spiritual endeavor or spiritual practice, I hear it and I go, oh, that makes sense. It rings a bell with me. And maybe if I'm lucky, I can remember it long enough to try it the next morning. Right.
nice.
So I think some wonderful things can occur spiritually from just attending meetings.
No.
So thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love how you touched on what I would call pockets of enthusiasm. Like when I came in locally, I was, I'd heard that term here recently over the last couple of years, but that's what I luckily came into. I came into like a few handful of people in the area that I was living in that were on fire for this thing, and they understood the importance of 12-stepping someone, right? And I'll tell you, sometimes because that's in the area I live in, it's not necessarily the biggest thing, right? I mean, you can go to certain meetings and, people are just sitting there with their arms crossed, et cetera, and but I'm grateful that I luckily ran into that type of people that were just on fire for this thing. And I was attracted to it in some way. And they spoke my language and they were transparent enough to where I was like, wow, this guy's, he's 30 years sober and he's got a freaking life that seems like it's enjoyable. And yet he's talking, he's sharing his experience where I can relate. He's just like, at one point he was doing all the crazy stuff I was doing, So I love that, touching on that. And then also, I really like how you just touched on the. I'm in the same boat. I would be guilty if I said I wasn't, if I didn't go through that phase where it was like militant about the book says this, the book says this, But at the end of the day, and one of the things this podcast has helped me with, honestly, is that this is episode 98. I've had a freaking plethora of just amazing people on here, right? And every one of them have their own take, and every one of them are allowed to have their own experience. You get what I mean? So it's like, sure, I am a big book guy. Don't get me wrong. I love big book workshops, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I don't think we should diminish the other great, useful, meetings or whatever, right? So I love that you touched on that. I've been in that state. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And our co-founders, Bob and Bill, are both guilty of working the steps out of order.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Bob worked the amends on his first day of recovery, and Bill put him out of order, laying in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
So
in 12 days, right? He was only in town.
You're right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so I want to talk about the journey, the spiritual journey, because as an old sponsor of mine, Dave Pistol, who's passed on to the big meeting in the sky. Dave used to say, if I'm not better, was sober well over 40 years when he passed. And he said, if I'm not better, what am I telling the new person? I have gotten better and I have changed, and I have. I'm not, my spiritual development I'm in a different place spiritually than I was when I was new. And that is to be expected. That doesn't mean I'm better or I'm more enlightened. It just means I've been at it longer. What can be misconstrued for wisdom is really just I'm old and I have some experience, right? I'm not that bright. I've just been on the planet longer than some people. And it's important I understand that, but it's also important that I make use of it. So one of the things that I've been guilty of certainly is I understand AA and I quote the book, and but I'm the guy who goes to the gym and watches other people work out, and I can't figure out why I'm not getting in shape. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Talking about these practices is really it's a commitment to actually go ahead and practice them in real life. It is to help us remember. It is to make these commitments spiritually. So in the beginning, I think that, and by the way, nobody teaches you this in AA, but we all suffer from it, particularly when we're new. I seem to know what good prayer and good meditation is. Now, I don't know anything about prayer and meditation. Nobody's asking me for my report on a daily basis of my prayer and meditation. They're more interested, are you doing it?
Yeah.
And that's all they care about.
Yeah.
But yet my head judges my own prayer and meditation, and most people do. I'll give you an example. We've all been guilty of getting up late, right? We say we're supposed to get up at 6:30 a.m., and that allows us time to have our coffee, pray and meditate, do whatever little things we have to do at home, and get out the door and be on time to work. We get up at 7. First thought, well, I won't have time for prayer and meditation today.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that God has business hours, right? And nobody taught me that.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty so many times of, well, I missed my window, maybe tomorrow. And it's that nobody has taught me that in AA, yet I suffered from that. Or the fact that I'm not feeling something emotional when I'm doing these practices, so I don't think I'm doing it right. We're so addicted to how we feel.
Amen.
I mean, why do you think I was drinking all that whiskey and doing all that other crap?
Yeah.
Did I like the taste? Did I like the failure? Did I like the spending all my money? Did I like parking in front of strange people's homes and dangerous neighborhoods at all hours, waiting for people to get home that I really didn't know? The reality is I'm trying to change the way I feel.
Amen.
Underneath all that is a guy that is incredibly uncomfortable with life, hates the way he feels when he's sober, and I'm trying to change the way I feel. So to think I'm going to get sober and not use this scale of feeling as a barometer for success or failure, it's going to take me a while to let go of that.
Amen.
So when we talked, Paul, about, coming up with a topic, it's like non-negotiable, spiritual principles, non-negotiable spiritual practices, what does that mean? So I want to get into that a little bit with the time I have left, and hopefully just share some things with you that I do that have been very helpful in my recovery.
Nice.
Okay. So I touched on it already, how I've been guilty. It's seemingly, I'm a guy that can do, prayer and meditation in the morning and really feel something, really like the reading I chose, felt a connectedness when I was saying my prayers in the morning, and then head out the door, and there seemed to be a spiritual guillotine that hung by the front door, and it would sever my conscious contact. And I mean, without my permission, and I'm out I want to be connected to God, I'm just not. And then I run in the world on self-will. I get whatever results I get, show up at a meeting that night. Hopefully they call on me and I can say something spiritual, and then go home at night and wonder why I feel so empty. There's something missing. And of course, nothing here is hidden, but the problem is the simplicity of Alcoholics Anonymous sometimes it's the biggest cloak to big thinkers like we think we are, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Because it can't be that simple. Well, it is. So, I'm in sales. I've been in sales for a long time in the construction industry, roofing specifically. And what I've learned about, sales, all sales is a negotiation. It's one negotiation after another. And the other thing that I've learned is that every human being on the planet is a negotiator. We just don't know it. We wouldn't call it that, but everyone on the planet negotiates.
Mm.
Example, we negotiate where we live, what we do for work, where we go on vacation, what we eat at night, what we watch on TV, how we dress, what music we listen. And you know what? That's called free will. That is one of the gifts of being one of God's kids is we have free will to negotiate what we want our life to look like and what we want to experience. And boy, that's a big cauldron that we can go into and decide. And we can change our mind. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
We can, and we talk about it though, particularly through our youth as we get older, we talk about the phases that we were in, I was a surfer, and then I was a punk rocker, and then I was, it's like, but we're allowed to change our mind, and we're allowed to discover new things. And this negotiation. We get to negotiate all of these things in our life. We don't like the way things are going. We can negotiate a new deal with whatever it happens to be, right? Recovery is too important for negotiation.
Wow.
I have watched countless people, and you know what it looks like, negotiate their way out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what does negotiation sound like in Alcoholics Anonymous? Do I really need to take that commitment? Do I really need to get on that committee? Do I really need to work with new people? Do I really need to write a 10th step if this problem keeps popping up in my life? And what we do, negotiation is a process of asking ourselves and assigning value to things. Okay. Do I want to do it? Is it valuable? What will I get from it? This is normal with other forms of negotiation. Problem is the old adage in AA, you don't get it until you do it. So we're talking about negotiating things that we may not see the value in. Are we forgotten the value of? And then we find ourselves alone, separated, out of recovery. We drink again. If we're lucky, we make it back. And then there's a speech that people returning to Alcoholics Anonymous give, when they return, if they're lucky enough to return. And one of the components of that speech is always, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped calling my sponsor. I stopped praying. So all these things are obviously very important because people that return, that went back to drinking, will list them as what allowed them to go back to the grinder. What allowed you to participate in that desperate experiment of the first drink again. And what happened is they negotiated their way out of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you want a visual, think of somebody you love, and they're walking backwards towards a cliff, and you're saying, hey, man, stop walking. You're heading towards trouble. And they say, I'm fine. Everything's great. And people don't go from doing well in AA, having a good program, being plugged in, doing the deal, as we say, to like drunk. I'm not saying it hasn't happened.
Sure.
It's rare. Sure. It's rare.
Yeah.
We do not get severed from recovery. We waltz away from it. We dance away from it. The way that we build a program is one day at a time, one action at a time. And the way that we dismantle a program is identical, one action at a time, one day at a time, until we find ourselves really not doing anything. I have an interesting experience because I'm sober a while, and I've gotten the opportunity to travel in AA and talk. And what that'll do is you'll get, a lot of people end up with your phone number, and they'll think because you were behind a podium, something that guys in their home group don't know, which is erroneous. But anyway, I'll get a guy that will call me up, and he'll say this. He'll go, hey, I heard you talk at such and such event, and boy, I remember when I was enthusiastic the way you're enthusiastic. And I got to tell you, I'm just not anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's happened. And, I'm still sober, but I've really lost my enthusiasm. I've lost my zeal for this thing. And I just don't know how to get it back. And I don't know if you have any suggestions. And so I'll go, okay, well, let me ask you some questions first. And I'll say, tell me about your home group.
Mm.
Well, I moved about 3 years ago, and I currently don't have a home group. I'm going to meetings, but I'm kind of checking meetings out. But I had a really good home group for years.
Mm.
I was active in, I had commitments in, but the last 3 years, I've just kind of been going to meetings. I don't really have okay. All right. Well, tell me about the guys you're working with, the new guys you're taking through the work. Well, I've taken a lot of guys through the steps. I couldn't even give you a number. I mean, a lot over the years. I mean, my God, I'm over 30 years sober. But currently, I don't have a home group. I'm not really tethered to anybody. My schedule's kind of all over the place.
Mm.
I haven't taken anybody through the work in a while. Okay, that's fine. Tell me about your prayer and meditation. My what?
Yeah.
Your prayer and meditation. What does that look like? I mean, no judgment. I mean, what
Sure.
do you do exactly
Yeah.
to improve your conscious contact with God? I believe in God. I have a good relationship with God. I've had amazing spiritual awakenings along the way. But currently, I'm not doing much. Well, you're not doing much, or you're not doing anything. Well, I'm really not doing anything.
Mm.
And there's an old story about a friend of mine who went to the late great Howard Poland and said, "Howard, I'm having a problem with meditation." And he said, "Well, tell me about your meditation." He goes, "Well, I'm not doing it."
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, you don't have a problem with meditation. You have a problem with meditating."
Yeah.
So, and a guy that answers those questions that way, at the end of it, I'll say, "Well, I think I've narrowed down what your problem is." And he'll go, "What is it?" And I go, "You're not doing anything."
Yeah.
You see, it's counterintuitive to be sober. I don't care if it's 2 years or 20 years or 30 years. It's a lot of time. I mean, if you
Yeah.
talk about how time feels, the time that felt like the most time I've ever had was when I was 5 years sober. It's a very dangerous time. I knew everything at 5, everything. Oh, it was just ask me. I knew everything. But it it's not about this stuff happens to us at different points in our sobriety. It's kind of normal that we get disconnected spiritually, and it's counterintuitive to think that I need to do the same things on a regular basis, on a daily basis that I did when I was new. It insults our intelligence, and we're built for leisure. It's like I don't want to do anything I don't have to do.
Yeah.
And so what I don't realize is there's a big difference between believing in God and relying on God.
Nice.
And I have been the guy that's been guilty of believing in God yet not relying on God.
Nice.
Well, how does that look? Well, it looks like a guy that will say God with his lips but act like a maniac with his actions, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody has to ask me how my spiritual condition is when I'm taking your inventory, or I'm being judgmental, or I'm angry again. So what happens to me for years in sobriety is I take these vacations from God. Although I believe in God, I'm not relying on God, and I spend X amount of time every day disconnected. And what the book says very clearly is what we're looking for is a conscious contact with a power greater than ourselves, which means conscious, I'm awake. Contact means I'm connected. It's very simple. So how often? As often as possible. Well, it feels very mechanical in the beginning, which is natural. It feels like we have to shut our life down or hit the pause button and step away from it to evoke contact, which we can do. We find out that this idea of God in every man, woman, and child, as it promises us, is true. If we ask the question, we get an answer. The problem is we're not very good doing it on the fly. And if you give me a choice, all right, we're going to describe two guys. There's a guy who does beautiful morning prayer meditation. It's so beautiful, you want to film it, right? I mean, you could just look at the guy and he looks spiritual. The room he's doing it in, the room he's doing it in looks spiritual. There's a gong in the room, for God's sake. There's incense burning. There's beautiful tapestries on the wall. And if you look closely, there's books of every spiritual discipline all around the room. He's sitting cross-legged. You might suspect that he's actually floating. And he seems to be so happy and so in touch. Now, you can choose that guy who has a great conscious contact for 15 to 45 minutes every morning, or give me a guy that's connected all day long.
Nice.
Give me the guy that's connected all day long.
Sure.
And I believe in prayer meditation. I believe in the evening review. I believe in these things, the 11-step discuss. But if I had to choose between those and what happens between those two events, I think what happens between those two events is much more important.
Nice.
And here's why. I've never gotten in any trouble on my knees next to my bed in the morning,
Yeah.
ever. That's not where my life is lived.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if I don't get out of bed and start some type of spiritual discipline, I can ruin my day in about 30 seconds. I did it last Tuesday. I literally got out of bed, felt great. I'm in a good mood. My wife got up before me. I came downstairs. A minute later, I realized I've picked a fight with my wife. I didn't see it coming. I just,
Sure.
the location of all my troubles between my nose and my chin, right? And I just opened it. And next,
Yeah.
I haven't even left the house to go to work, and I'm making amends. I'm thinking, what the hell's wrong with me? And I replayed that in my head. Like, what happened? I didn't even see that coming. And it's a lack of spiritual discipline. It's a lack of spiritual preparation.
Nice.
And so I can't speak for anybody else but myself. I was a guy that would get my life moving too fast. And I don't mean my physical speed. I'm talking about my emotional speed and my intellectual speed. I'm going too fast. I'm missing things. I don't have time to consider you. My biggest character defect is inconsideration.
Amen.
And it is exactly what it sounds like. I don't consider you.
Yeah.
I'm moving too fast.
Sure.
I didn't mean to ignore you. I didn't mean to miss the clues. I didn't mean to miss that opportunity to be of service. I just had things to get done. I had an agenda because of the speed I was moving at that felt it was very important. So what I'm in a state of playing God is what I am.
Sure.
Because when I'm God, I'm very important.
Yeah.
And my stuff comes first. It makes sense. It's logical.
Yeah.
So how do I do anything about this? Well, I think we have to consider the idea that there's, and I use this word speed because it's easy for us to wrap our head around. I think there's a speed to self-will.
Wow.
And I think there's a speed to God's will.
Nice.
I think the speed associated with self-will is a reactive speed where we don't really have time to consider anything.
Yeah.
Things present themselves, we react to them, we move on, we take whatever results we get. We miss a lot and we misinterpret a lot of things.
Yeah.
The other thing is the speed of God's will. It's contemplative. It feels to the individual, myself, it feels much slower. In fact, it feels like molasses, man. It feels like being stuck in the mud. But here's the reality. In actual application, it is not. What if we go out on the premise that God's language, if you will, is silence?
Space, yeah.
And his language is silence, and his address is space, is room. I have to create space and silence to connect. I have to create space and silence to communicate. Now, that's obviously I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm moving at a speed that's reactive. So how can I pull back and use the tools I've been offered in Alcoholics Anonymous to create this silence, to create this space? So let's talk about some practical spirituality.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about work. All right. I'm in somewhat of a management position. There's guys that need to communicate with me about what they're going to go do that day. They're the builders. They're the guys that build the work for us, right? And they need to meet with me. And so most mornings when I get to work, they're waiting for me. They got there even before I did. And they're doing things like fueling up the truck and getting their equipment ready. And the foreman and maybe the second man will be waiting for me. And I will walk in to my office and full of self, right?
Yeah.
And I've got a head full of what I have to get done that day.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I got a lot on my plate.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And I walk in the door and they come at me like fighter jets, Don, Don, Don. And I'll tell you, if I'm not spiritually fit, my response might be something like this. Do you not see that I just walked in the door?
Yeah.
I'm not even at my desk yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it'd be okay if you just let me sit down. I don't know, put my keys down. God forbid I got a cup of coffee. And then you know what? I'll drop everything and work on your little problem. How would that be? And for some reason, that hurts people's
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah.
Now, the
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
isn't that these workers are coming at me. They need to come at me. I want them to come at me. I
Yeah.
don't want them to go out in the day without talking to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I don't like the way they're doing it
Yeah.
because I'm selfish and I'm self-centered and I come first.
Yeah.
What do you do about a thing like that? Well, it's really simple. I shut off the truck. I don't get out of the truck because I'm not in any state to go deal with people. I'm in a state of self.
Yeah.
And so I say basically the same prayer every day when I go to work, which is God, I'm at work right now. And I got what I want to get done today hanging all over me. I'm thinking about what's in front of me, what I need to get done before my day's over. And I'm not thinking about anybody but me.
Yeah.
And you know what? These guys, we couldn't do what we do without them. Give me eyes to see and a heart to feel. Let me remember that they're very important and they're your kids too.
Yeah.
And then I close my eyes and I meditate for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And then I walk in the door and they come at me like fighter jets. Don, 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 Don. And now it's it's like, what do we got going on, boys? Let's talk about this. And what that does, creating space and silence with God, allows me to create space and silence with the guys I work with. In other words, I can listen to them.
Nice.
I can hear what they're asking.
Yeah.
I actually can communicate better. And what that does for them is it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel coveted. It makes them feel necessary. And it makes them feel respected.
Nice.
And the truth is it should, and that's the way they should be treated because they are coveted and they are respected. And we couldn't do what we do without them. So it creates an environment where they feel like they're important to the company. Now, what that pays in dividends is we have a good relationship. We have a good working relationship. They're not afraid of me. I'm not afraid of them. If I ask anything of them, the answer is always, what do you need from us? Because they're trying to be helpful. Because you know who I like? I like people that like me.
Yeah, amen.
And if they feel like
It's true.
I like them,
Yeah.
that's just human nature. You want to do things for people that you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we like each other. And that is created spiritually. Now, I will come home after work, as I have for many years, and I'm glad to be home. I mean, it's just the day's over. And finally I can get to a safe place and relax but as I'm driving home, I'm thinking about what I have to do when I get home. I'm thinking about the little honeydews that are on the list. I'm thinking about maybe taking the dog out. I'm thinking about, do I have time to get a nap before I go to the meeting tonight? I'm thinking about whatever, but I'm thinking about me, bet your bottom dollar, right? And
Yeah.
I will park the truck. I will walk in, and if I'm not spiritually fit, my wife has been waiting maybe all day, but at least for a little while for me to get home. She knows what time I get home.
Yeah.
And she wants to tell me about her day.
Nice.
She wants to talk to me. And the reason she wants to talk to me, and she's explained this to me, is because I'm her favorite person on the planet.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know she wants to talk to me because she always has something to talk to me about. Well, what? I don't know. But I know she's going to want to talk to me.
Yeah.
If I'm not spiritually fit, I might say something like, honey, baby, I love you like good poetry, but I just got home.
Yeah.
I'm in the entryway. I'm holding my keys in my hand. Would it be okay? Maybe I put my keys down, took my boots off, walked in, and then I'll stop everything I'm doing and I'll listen to you. I just need a few minutes. And she'll say, never mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to walk in the house in that state. I'm not perfect, but I try not to walk in the house in that state. And I'll turn the engine off and I won't get out of the car and I'll say, God, I'm home, and I got the world hanging all over me. I got what I want to do. I got what's on my plate. I've got me, and there's a woman in there, and in that woman there's a heart, and I love that heart, and she's a gift in my life, and I love her so
Wow.
much. And I say that to anybody, but give me eyes to see and a heart to feel.
Wow. Yeah.
Let me show her how I feel.
Yeah.
Not tell her how I feel. Let me show, and then I'll meditate. I'll meditate about what would I look like? How would I act? I try to see myself. How would that guy act who professes to love his wife as much as he does?
Wow.
How would he act?
Yeah.
And when I could see myself, then I can go in. And then it's a different vibe. It's like, I want to find her. I want to hear about her day. I
Amen.
want to hear the stories. I want to hear that. And I got to tell you, it's a huge inconvenience, like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it changes the environment of our home when I remember to do that.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's called consideration as opposed to inconsideration.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is my default setting
Yeah.
without spiritual discipline,
Yeah.
without spiritual direction of my thought life is self. My default setting is always self. How do I know that? Do you know that I wake up every morning thinking about me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? This doesn't stop there. I go to AA at night,
Mm.
and I'll show up at AA, and man, I got no business getting out of the car. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about my money. I'm thinking about my sex. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home after the meeting. I'm thinking about I haven't had dinner yet. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
this. I'm thinking about, I wonder if we have a business meeting after the meeting. Is there some retreat business or that? I'm going on and on in my head,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about anything but what I'm supposed to be thinking about when I get to AA.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to get out. I'm in a complete state of self.
Hmm.
So I don't get out of the car. And I'll say the same prayer when I go to AA. And I'll say, God, I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got the world hanging all over me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got my money problems, my sex problems, my this problem, my that problem. I go, you know what, God, I'm going to leave all my problems in the front seat of this rig. And I know you're going to take real good care of them.
Wow.
But give me eyes to see, give me a heart to feel. Let me remember what it was like to be new.
Hmm.
I know this is just another night of recovery for me, another gift in an endless series of gifts, but it could be the most important night of somebody's life. And I don't want to miss it.
Wow.
And then I'll get quiet and I'll meditate and I'll try to see myself what it was like when I was new, how scared I was, how every night felt like touch and go. How I would go to meetings thinking, man, I hope I hear something good tonight. I really need to hear something good. How important it was when people simply remembered my name. How
Amen.
important it was when people took the time to just shake my hand and go, hey, good to see you. How those things, I might not have let you see how much they meant to me, but they meant the world to me.
Wow.
And when I can see myself when I was new in that state of how important the effect we have in each other's lives are, right? Then I can get out of the car, because if I'm not spiritually fit and I show up in AA, I'll walk right by the new guys.
Amen.
I'll go inside and get my seat. I'll say hi to my buddies at AA. I might be talking about fantasy football or a fishing trip or what I saw. And hey, have you seen this program? It's really good. You got to check it out. I'm going to get my cup of coffee. And if there's any time left over, maybe we'll have a little time to talk to new guys.
Yeah.
And I've completely forgotten what AA is about.
Wow.
So don't get out of the truck, right? Get spiritually fit. And now it's different. Now I shake hands with everybody in the parking lot before I go in.
Nice.
Now I shake hands with everybody in the room before I take my seat. Those disciplines, these little actions that we take turn out to be tethers. And the non-negotiability
Nice. Wow.
that we talk about with these spiritual endeavors is, and this is what the thought I want to leave you with. We have to stop judging ourselves about what's good, what's bad, what's effective in terms of the disciplines we talk about, prayer, meditation, right? These tools that we use. And we have to take a couple of simple concepts and start to apply them in our daily living. One, God doesn't have business hours.
Nice.
He's available right now to us. We can pray and meditate anytime we want.
Nice.
We can slow the world down. We can create silence. We can step back. Remember when you're new and you said, I'm freaking out at work, and your sponsor would say, pray.
Yeah.
You go, but where am I supposed to pray? I don't care. Go
Yeah.
to the outhouse and pray.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Go to the dumpster. We don't care.
Yeah.
But stop. And they would make us pull back from our life and say a prayer, and it would work.
Yeah.
But we forget that when we have time in our belt.
Sure.
Like, I'm too important to pray. I'm too busy to pray. And I become the guy that believes in God but doesn't rely on God.
Mm-hmm.
So these non-negotiable things that I do, one, I got to remember, God does not have business hours. He's available to me at any time. The other thing is I can't negotiate the tools. We live as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, we live on the high road, right? That is our address. That's where we must be. I've got to be the guy that is thinking of others. I have to be the guy that's trying to come from a place of service. And all they asked me to do in AA is learn to ask some different questions. What would God have me do? What would God have me think? What would God have me be? I mean, I've asked questions my whole life that are similar. What do I want to do? What do I want to be? And it's just changing the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this idea, I mean, if I can simply, we talk a lot about, I'll give you an example, character defects. I know people that, you ask them about their character defects, they can go on, but I don't believe that we have 22 character defects.
Same.
I believe we have one. We're selfish and we're self-centered. Everything else is born of that.
Amen.
And which means what? I think everything that we label as a problem in our lives turns out to be nothing more than a spiritual dilemma. If that's true, that's actually good news, because that means that every solution is spiritual in nature.
Nice.
If everything's a spiritual dilemma, then every solution has to be spiritual in nature. So I spend a lot of time trying to fix my life, and it's a folly. If I can simply live in the spirit of the third step, the 11th step, the 7th step, whereas I'm simply trying to do what I think God would have me do, I'm betting on the idea that what I'm looking for, I'm looking with, that inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. He's already here. He's as real as the feelings I would have for a friend. I'm banking on that.
Amen.
If that's true,
Yeah.
and I simply live my life in a moment-to-moment basis to the best of my ability, just do what you think God would have you do, my character defects are instantaneously removed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I'm right. It seems like it doesn't matter. I have to let go of the finding and fall in love with the seeking. It seems to be that's where the power's at. And God for me has always been a result. And what I mean by that is I wish I could go in an isolated manner, which prayer and meditation is usually an isolated manner, and feel the nearness of my creator. The truth is I don't. You know when I feel close to God? After I work with a new guy.
Nice.
After I do something nice for my wife. After I do something nice for one of God's kids.
Wow.
After I'm considerate of somebody where before I would have been inconsiderate.
Yeah.
Patient where I would have been impatient. Non-judgmental where I would have been judged. That's when I feel closer to God. Because you step away from that and there's a breeze that goes through you, and it's the realization, the recognition that something has happened in your life that you can't take credit for.
Amen.
And that's where I feel the nearness of my creator. And I get to say the simple words, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting unblocked.
And that's all I've got on this subject.
Yeah, no, that was freaking awesome, dude. You speak my language. I'm telling you, every time you speak my language, I appreciate it. I remember specifically one of the last things you said on the last episode we did together. He was like, Paul, I've been around, and I'm probably going to botch this, so, not verbatim, but you was like, Paul, I've been around some deep, deep spiritual wells, right? And then you were like, and I emerged dry as a bone, which is it, right? You speak my language, right? So it's funny because, I had Dave F., and I know we got to cut this off here in just a second, so I'll make this quick, but we had Dave F., and he's, I don't know, Dave F. from Flower Mound, Texas, and he does this thing called the 12 prayer, meditation, and visions, and it's the same concept. It's like if you look at, he has these 12 daily prayers, right, and it's also carrying this vision, to where it's the same thing. It's like, if you look at page 83, it says, each morning we ask our Creator to show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And then we take a moment and meditate on what each one of those principles would look like. You take, like, for my wife, for example, it's like, what would it look like to be kind towards my wife? I love how you said considerate. That's me to a T. That's my biggest thing. I'm so busy or whatever that I'm not considerate. Oh, she's a person with feelings that are valid. You know, I was just having a conversation with a sponsee an hour or so ago, and it's like, dude, does it sound invalid? You know, she's so, you know, I'm so consumed with self, I'm butthurt because so and so is telling me something, you know, and it's, you know, dude, it ain't
Right.
about me, right? And so the cool part about this is, man, it's just life changing. It's life giving, right? It's just life giving. It actually gives a purpose. And I real quick before we get off, I love the fact that you touched on, like, you know, when we come in, the most important thing to us is our feelings, right? Because like what recovery has done for me in a lot, one of the biggest things it's done for me was I don't let, you know, my feelings aren't the most important thing for me today. If I'm spiritually aligned, my feelings aren't necessarily the more important thing for me. They're huge. Don't get me wrong. My feelings, you know,
Right.
but at the end of the day, like, y'all have taught me not to make decisions based off that. Right? Y'all have given me these, like you said, non-negotiable spiritual practices. You know, I do nightly review. You know, there might be a couple nights out of the week where I miss it, but it's rare, right? So I do nightly review. I do all this stuff, and I know how I feel when I'm doing the stuff, and I know how it feels not to do it, right? And I hope I never get comfortable with not doing it, right? So luckily, I've had some real good teachers and good mentors over the years that, you know, my first grant sponsor was always like, how many guys you working with? How many guys you working with? What about the new guy? What about the new guy? I used to be like, come on, dude. But no, like, that's my life. I love, if you look at, it's the basis of this whole thing, right? As Bill said, you know, to share these conceptions with another person is the foundation of this thing. So I'm so grateful. And I really appreciate guys like you that speak my language, man. I hear, you know, everything you say it speaks to my heart. Yeah. Thank you so much, man. And I know you got to get off here. Yeah,
I do.
I'd love to, you know, stay in touch with you and possibly, you know, later on this year do another date or something. So,
Absolutely, buddy.
yeah, thank you so much, man. And you have a wonderful night. Enjoy that
All
food.
right, thanks, Paul. Be good.
See you.
Talk to you later.
Hello, and welcome back to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast, where we explore the ongoing journey of recovery and the spiritual growth that comes with it. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hey everyone, it's Paul from Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast with a quick note before we get started with this episode. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for an entire year now. It's been such an amazing experience getting to know everybody. We already have the majority of 2026 booked up, and we have a lot of great guests scheduled. We don't make any money off YouTube or any of the other platforms. This podcast is completely self-supporting, and we've spent a lot of money, time, and energy into it simply just because we love doing it. We're not trying to make a profit, but we are trying to cover our upcoming expenses if that's at all possible. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can make a contribution at our Venmo, which is Recovery Recordings 615. We'd like to keep this commercial free. Thank you.